is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. Today, he's going to take me on a little trip into Appendix N, Stu Horvath.
Oh boy, here we go. Getting my tour guide hat on.
Well, it's funny because we've been doing the show in about a month from now, it'd be 8 years. And if you have been a long-time listener or even like a part-time listener, you've probably heard me say time and time again, I don't read. Because I don't. I read, comic books. I read a lot of comics. I'm a voracious comic reader. However, for the most part, a lot of the golden greats of fantasy and sci-fi that really shaped and formed the hobby, I've never read. I've dipped my toes in over the years, but I never really stuck to it. I bounced off a lot of stuff. I have a very vague to solid understanding of a lot of stories and where stuff came from, mostly because of this show. But finally, I actually started reading at night. You hear me talk about how I don't want to be on social media, so I make sure that I'm not at night. And I was reading a lot of comics on Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite. And then I was like, I'm watching a lot of Spencer for Hire. I was like, you know what, man, I finally should just sit down and just fully, he said the name Philip Marlowe enough in 3 seasons. Like, screw it, I'm going to read it. So I just read The Big Sleep.
Oh man, what a great book.
What a great book. If you haven't read it, it really is like the archetype for a lot of detective fiction through the years. And you can just see how far the influence of it has gone in television and movies. And, I downloaded some Agatha Christie, I got some old Hardy Boys books, but I was like, you know what, man, if I'm going down this path, one of the things that keeps coming up over and over and over again is Ursula Guin.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading Earthsea last night.
How far'd you get?
I am I'm barely into it, but I will tell you this, in the honest to God's truth. I get it. I open it up. And by the way, so a lot of the, we'll sidebar here. A lot of the Raymond Chandler stuff is free 99 on the apps that you would read books on. The Ursula Le Guin stuff is still like $13, and hell yeah, as it should be. So I spent $13. I got, Earthsea. I read that first chapter and I put the book down and I said, oh my God, I should have read this sooner.
It's 100% true. I had the same reaction. And honestly, that feeling never stopped. All the way through all 6 books. And I was just like, man, this is well overdue.
My God. And I think it's only like 200 something pages, which I can breeze through. So 6 books would be like 3 regular sized novels. But I sat there reading it, and it was from 1968, if I recall correctly. I just read through all of the stuff that they were talking about with Dunny, who turns into Ged, and the process of magic and how magic works, and fighting the dudes in the village and how they did it. And I'm sitting here going, my God, I can completely see the lineage from then until modern fantasy storytelling and how it's unfolded decade over decade, and all the dyed-in-the-wool influence that comes from just this first chapter. And I sat there in my bed, I looked at my wife, and I was like, oh my God. She's like, you okay? And I was like, I've been wrong this whole time. I should have read this 30 years ago, but I'm so glad I'm reading it now. And I thought today would be good for Stu to give me a top 5, but you should have read this already, a list of things that I will read once I get through Earthsea.
Okay, so first of all, our friend Ed just read through all of the Philip Marlowe novels. I've only read the first 2, The Big Sleep and Farewell, My Lovely, which are both great, and I keep meaning to read the rest. The Long Goodbye is a great movie with Elliot Gould. Is that The Long Goodbye? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Oh, and Elliot Gould is Philip Marlowe? Sign me up.
He's so good. He's so good.
Although I will say, every time since I've met our friend Dan,
totally, 100%.
I can't see. Every time I see Elliot Gould, I just see Dan.
There's one picture of Elliot Gould that Dan used as his online avatar for a long time. That Dan is young Elliot Gould, and it's unnerving to when you realize that he's not. But yeah, I think that Raymond Chandler's novels are just like incredibly good and fast paced, and like so much comes out of it, and a lot of that feeds into just other genre fiction. I think that that you could apply a lot of that. I mean, Philip Marlowe is a knight, right? And they do that in The Big Sleep, where I think it's The Big Sleep, maybe it's Farewell My Lovely, where there's like a doorway that has like a painting over it where there's a knight saving a maiden and there's a dragon, and it's like he's really he really hammers the visual down of no, he is a knight in shining armor, or old knight in tarnished armor.
Yeah.
And
just like Spencer for Hire, or as I like to call him, Boston Magnum. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, you always read books, and this is in my book reading history pre being 15 years old. This is how far it goes back when I really kind of gave up the ghost on reading books, or even in movies, more relatable to me, I think, where you hit a point where everything is good, and then you realize there's only so many minutes left in the movie. You're like, well, how are they going to tie this one up? Same thing. Once in The Big Sleep, it hits a point where everything's hunky-dory. He's pretty much got it all sorted out. And then I realize there's only 6 pages left in this book. And I'm like, there's still a very big thing that has not happened. And Raymond Chandler so masterfully ties it up with a little bit of bow that is completely satisfying in those last 6 pages. And you're like, well, that everything was set up flawlessly, and it just made sense, and I'm completely satisfied with this transaction. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. What?
He misses something though in The Big Sleep. Did you know that?
What does he miss?
I could be wrong because it's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure that there is no good explanation for why who kills the chauffeur. That might be a movie problem.
That's a movie problem because it does get explained. It was Joe Brody.
Oh, okay.
And that's how he ended up with the pictures.
Right. Okay, yeah, so it's just a movie problem. But I love that fact. I love the fact that the movie just there's too much. And the movie, I'm pretty sure, is adapted by William Faulkner, of all people. It's just God damn. What?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got to get to fantasy. So what am I missing?
Okay. So, I mean, the obvious one is Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories. If you want to understand, D&D style fantasy, I think you could do no better than books 2 and 3. That's Swords Against Death and Swords in the Mist. Those are sort of the collections of the earliest stories, and they're also sort of the non sequitur. Just this is a new adventure of the two guys. After that point, there is a sort of Leiber kind of puts together an overarching narrative that connects to the first book, which is Swords of Deviltry, which is really, really good. But if you're just looking for a kind of peek into, fantasy adventure from the pulps, you could skip Ilmet and Langmar, which is the central story of Swords of Deviltry. It's a fantastic story. It's probably ultimately my favorite, but it's also it's part of something bigger that the other stories aren't. And the two of those guys together, they're witty, they're funny, they are very much the dumb player character. They have that disease where given 3 options, they'll pick the worst one.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Possibly just to see what happens.
That's my bread and butter. Yeah.
There's weird monsters. There's a trap house that is the whole house is one big death trap. This was Leiber's stories were really the first time that we had more than one character as the central focus of the stories. 2 people isn't quite a party in terms of D&D, but before that it was always lone wolf, strong men like Conan or whoever. And they're just great. And they're short stories, so you don't have to they don't have the heft of a novel. You can just sort of dip in and out. And I just guarantee that you'll find something to love there. They're not like Conan's always ugh, Conan. I have this destiny. The civilization, man. It's just he's just it's like the guy with the souped up car. You're trying to make up for something here, I feel like. Whereas Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, there's a real sense that mostly what they're doing is they have an inability to not get into trouble. And like, I think that that's just a more fun, more interesting kind of fantasy vibe than Conan. Which I guess is probably my number two. Is like you should probably read like The Red Nails or Tower of the Elephant is really great. Robert E. Howard could like write a slam bang book, but like I feel like there's just so much testosterone and so much like I can't read a lot of Conan in one sitting because I just get tired. He sets a pace that I'm just like, oh man. What's the one where he's king of Aquilonia and there's a war and like he's now not king of Aquilonia and he gets captured by a sorcerer. That's a really good one because there's like an almost honest to goodness dungeon in it. But a lot of the monsters like it's just like the problem with Conan is that you know that Conan's going to like cut everything in half at the end of the day, you know? Like
yeah.
And it's telegraphed from the start, and there's never really any doubt. And I mean, there's not really any doubt that Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse are going to win through at the end, but they do. That's sort of secondary. Like you know, like that's not the point of their adventures. The point of their adventures is to see what kind of trouble they get into. That trouble, I have to warn you, if you really get into Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, that trouble gets really kinky later in the books.
Oh my.
Yeah, like the penultimate one, I was just like, oh wow, there's some bondage and sadomasochism in here that I just didn't expect. And then like there's a lot of interesting stuff in the final book. There is one really great thing where Fafhrd and they're constantly getting in trouble with women. They are horny stories from the very beginning. It's just like they get like sort of like weirder horny as they go. But there is a really cool part where Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are sort of like having or maybe it's just Grey Mouser. They're not having a conversation. Grey Mouser's just thinking about it. He's just like, all that time on the road, we never messed around. I gotta ask Fafhrd if he ever thought about this because like, you know, like at a drop of a hat, they chase skirts, but like he's sort of just wondering like, oh, like, did we? And at that point, their girlfriends are longtime a pair of longtime adventurers.
Right.
So he's sort of like wondering, like, did they ever mess around? And it's just like this really interesting thing to sort of come out like a late 60s, early 70s fantasy novel.
That's wild, man. All right. So I just like, as you're doing this, I'm adding it to my book list in my phone. That is like, okay, you know, on my want list. So what's next?
So, okay. Not Appendix N at all. But I think that it bookends very well with Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea. The Prydain Chronicles, which is 5 books by Lloyd Alexander set in like a sort of mythic Wales. Unfortunately, this was sort of they used the second novel, The Black Cauldron, for a pretty poor Disney film adaptation that has really great skeletal warriors and nothing else. But don't let that stop you. The 5 books is just a fantastic. I did read those as a kid, and they did change me. And when I reread them, I was just like, ah, man, like that made me even more sad that I didn't read the first 3 Earthseas when I was a kid, because I could see the influence through the way that Prydain influenced me. I could also see how I would have internalized some lessons from those books from Earthsea.
Right.
That would have been really important. I got there eventually, but I could have gotten there earlier. They're great. There's undead warriors. There's witches. There's a very strong, willful female character. There's the best bard I think that has ever been written, and they are. If you had to distill it all down, the main character is Taran. He's a pig keeper. He wants a great destiny, and he's motivated to adventure and to get embroiled in this epic, struggle between light and dark, because he wants to be famous. He wants to be a hero, and he isn't. And he becomes something that we would probably call a hero by the end, but he's not the main character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
He isn't the boy who's going to become king. He isn't the guy he might actually get the big bad guy at the end, but like if he does, that doesn't matter. Like by the end, all of the glory that he was hunting for doesn't matter to him, because he learns the weight of leadership and responsibility towards his fellow man in a way that like is really hard to read in the last two books. But they're great. They're fantastic. And like I wish everybody would read them, because I think that we'd have a kinder, more just, I think people would be willing to take care of each other more if everybody read these books and took them seriously.
Yeah. So, all right. Fafhrd and Grey Master, Conan, Lloyd Alexander, all added to the list.
If you can find the ones, I'll show you. I'll put pictures. They're in a post on the site. If you can find my covers, I think the editions that I read have like the best covers. But they're all, that's just.
Oh yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the covers don't matter. I'm reading it all digitally on my iPad, so.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Physical books. Oh.
Well, listen. You know what? I read in bed. My room is not very well lit. I just. It's easy for me to switch from the comics apps to the whatever the Apple Books app is. I think it's just called Books, but.
Our friend Dave hit me up yesterday because they dropped this new Jaws record soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it's filled with water, like salt water or whatever. And like that's never going to sound good. I don't care. You can assure me as much as you want, just like those blood-filled records or the goo-filled like it's just never good. It's a gimmick that's just never going to sound good when you put the needle on it. But he's just like, you got to get this. I was like, no, I don't. I collect paper and water is my enemy.
It's my God, yes.
Totally. No, I can't. Like, if that breaks, it's just going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
Yeah, folks, you don't listen to picture discs. Just saying.
They get fuzzy. I remember one of the first Death Waltz records that I picked up. It was like a half and half color vinyl.
Yeah.
And you could hear it transition from color to color. There was like a little psst in the sound. It was really aggravating.
That is 100%. Like, I rent to Let It Rock in Montclair in my younger years. And I remember I was going to pick up a Less Than Jake's Pez Core, right? And they had it on CD and they had it on picture disc vinyl, same price. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna dump it down to a tape anyway for my car. So I'll get the colored vinyl looks cool. The picture disc looks awesome. I took it home, it was unlistenable because it made all those noises from color to color.
So and like you had a picture, so it's just all intricate and
it was just, and I'm like, well, that was fucking how much ever a record was back then that I'm never gonna get back. Yeah, borrowed the CD from my buddy, taped it off of that. Come at me, Metallica.
Let me think. I know what number 5 is going to be already, but I need a moment to ponder number 4. And the problem is that I don't have a lot of fantasy on my shelves aside of, I can see Earthsea up there.
Well, what was that one in San Francisco that we did the show on? The guy goes down, he gets pulled down, he's in San Francisco.
Oh my God. Oh, those are so good. Yeah, you totally should. Oh yeah, absolutely. That is on Appendix N. Both of her novels that are on Appendix N, Margaret St. Clair. Oh, damn, we're going to have to do 6. I'm sorry.
Fine.
You know what? Just pretend I didn't recommend Conan because we got to get to somebody else. Margaret St. Clair's 2 novels, Sign of the Labrys and The Shadow People, are just weird ass. They're so good. The Shadow People sort of inspires the Drow, and yeah, like you said, it's set in Berkeley, and like while the main character is underground, dealing with these cannibal elves and kind of on like this long hallucinogenic trip in the darkness of the cave complex. He's down there for like a year or two. But when he comes back, Berkeley has been toppled by like a fascist dictatorship, and there's robots. It's so weird. And like nobody, there's the implication that the elves are secretly all behind it because there's helicopters that are dusting people with what might be the same hallucinogenic substance that the guy was surviving on,
right?
Which was making him think that he was different animals. They are so good. They are so way out there. Sign of the Labrys is the closest that I've encountered to a Dungeons and Dragons irrational dungeon space in fiction prior to Dungeons and Dragons, because it's like it's a bunker. There's like this weird yeast disease that's killed off a lot of livestock. The only human beings who are surviving are the people who are immune to this infection, which kills people constantly. Mushrooms are like a staple diet. And like there's this like bunker that the guy lives in, and it's got levels, but they're like super weird. Like one level, he finds like the entrance through going through an autoclave. Like he pulls the autoclave out. There's like a secret door, and he goes down, and like then all of a sudden there's a beach. They are absolutely super strange, and they're really fast reads. Both of them are just like you could knock them out in a day or two. Like they are just so good.
Oh, I'm into it. Okay, I'm adding them.
Okay, so I lied. I lied when I said that Fluter Flam in the Lloyd Alexander books is the best bard ever written. Because Manly Wade Wellman's Silver John is the best bard ever written. And those are not conventional fantasy. Neither is Margaret St. Clair, really, because those are sort of science fiction fantasy. Manly Wade Wellman's Silver John stories are fantastic. They are totally Dungeons and Dragons in a way, but he's a hillbilly wandering guitarist in Appalachia in the 1950s. He was a Korean War vet, probably. It's left a little open, and he just wanders the countryside, meeting people, being kind to them, helping them out, and occasionally having to hunt down a witch or a wizard, and
Oh, I am into this. So which book should I start with?
There's a collection of short stories, which is like all the great stuff.
Boom, got it.
Yeah, John the Balladeer, I think it's called. And then, like, if you want to borrow the novels, like, I don't think that there's digital versions of them, but you could borrow mine. They're great. He's fantastic. So I do have to pick a nit. If most versions of, if you see a cover of these books that has John on it,
right,
they almost always hew to this sort of this stereotype of a hillbilly, which is like he'll have overalls on,
yeah,
and he'll have a big beard, and he'll look unkempt, maybe have like a floppy hat. That's not John.
Really?
No, John is. He would never have a beard. He's one of those guys, and I knew this in my heart for years until eventually in one of the novels it happens. He shaves every morning. He's one of those guys. He's got stuff in his hair to make his hair slick. And I guarantee that he was wearing a decent pair of boots, a pair of jeans, and like a red flannel. Like he's like
manly.
He's got like a Roger Miller. He's got like a Roger Miller vibe. And he's got like this guitar with silver strings that he takes care of. Like he's not like a redneck hillbilly like hunting ducks or whatever, like
Yeah.
he's like a post-war traveling balladeer. When you hear John the Hillbilly, don't think of him as like a hayseed. He's an educated guy who just lives in the South.
Love it. Love it. All right, so that's 4.
That's 4. And now I'm going to bring it around, and I don't think that you even realized I was going to do this, but I'm going to tie it up with Philip Marlowe.
Oof, yeah.
Because in Roger Zelazny's Amber series, the beginning opens up in the first novel is called Nine Princes in Amber. It opens up in a Chandler-esque style. The main character is attacked. And it's a very hard-boiled detective story at the beginning. Now it opens up, and eventually you find out that the main character, Corwin, is one of these 9 princes, and he's not from Earth. He's from the only true city, Amber, and which Earth is just like a shadow of Amber, and he's like a great magician, and like there's this wild, political plotting and coups and. The courts of chaos are involved. There's demons. There's the horrible monsters. There's armies. There's manticores in the second book, but they have wings.
Yeah,
I don't know how that feels.
Yeah,
They're very much, I think, something that was on Jeff Grubb and Zeb Cook's mind when they were putting together the cosmic, the multiverse of D&D and Gygax too. They're in Appendix N. I think that Planescape owes a lot to these books, but they're great. And Corwin is just a fantastic. He narrates everything in first person, and even though it gets weirder and weirder, when you're in Shadow, you could basically make anything happen and learn any skill.
Nice.
If you're one of these princes of Amber. So like he conjures up a whole world with like, I think they're cat people, and like the tricky thing is he wants to overthrow his brother, who is the ruler, who is the de facto king. But the closer you get to Amber, the less technology works. The first two books is sort of like him trying to figure out who's trying to kill him, and B, trying to figure out how he could get gunpowder to work in Amber, so he could, not so that he could take over, really, so that he could overthrow his brother.
Nice. But
because everybody in Amber has the ability to go into Shadow and learn anything, and be like, everybody's like really good at stuff. So every out and out conflict isn't something that happens really. Because like the guy who's the best guy at fighting is like really the best guy at fighting. Like you're never going to beat him unless you figure out a way to change the battlefield in your favor. But Corwin never, ever loses that Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe kind of voice. So it gets progressively weird. And like eventually he's dealing with like demons and chaos, but he's still kind of talking like a hard-boiled detective. And it's wonderful.
Perfect. That's my stuff.
And that's 5. That's 5 good ones that'll keep you going for another couple years.
Not at the speed I'll read. I'll be through them probably before the end of the year.
All right. There's all told. So the Amber books, there's 5 with Corwin and then 5 with his kid Merlin. So that's 10 books. But still, you could probably rip through those pretty fast too.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably read like a 200-page book, like just because like I do comics, then I do the book like a little bit before bed every night. So I bang through like that first Raymond Chandler book in like 5 days. Like, and that's intermixed with reading comics. And you know what? It's very interesting because as I'm reading, you know, because I'm going to make a recommendation in a minute, but I'm going to say to folks who maybe feel conflicted about Harry Potter, as understandably as you should be, man, why don't you turn your kids on to Ursula Guin? Because there is conflict-free magic happening right there, baby. Like, and it's just so much better. Like, I read one chapter and I was like, well, this is it. You know, like this is.
Ursula had some things to say about J.K. Rowling. You could look those up on the internet.
I will gladly do that. You know, because. You know, I don't even want to go down that road because fuck that. But like, and fuck all that stands for. But like, I talk to people I know, they have kids. Like, I don't know if it's, I loved it, but now I feel weird like talking to my kids about it and like, being like, hey, you should read this book because the author is, But Ursula K. Le Guin, conflict free, and let me tell you, I sat there last night reading it, and I was like, all right. I don't want to keep reading this because I will not sleep after getting through that one chapter. I was like, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put this down because I know me, and I know that I won't sleep. And I desperately needed to go to sleep. I was like, I'm just going to read a couple comics. Well, I completely made a bad decision there because what I'm going to recommend to everybody is Absolute Wonder Woman.
Really?
It's 7 issues. There's 7 issues in so far. The first arc is 5 issues. The second arc is just 2 issues. And for those who may not be familiar, recently, I mean, I guess maybe end of last year, DC started doing absolute versions of starting with their Trinity, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was, I think, the last one out the gate. Started with Batman, then Superman, then Wonder Woman. And I've heard, really great things about, Batman and Superman. But once I got through the first few issues, everyone was telling me, dude, Absolute Wonder Woman. Like this, it's based on mythology. The origin story is different. It takes Wonder Woman in a kind of a very different direction, but is still wholly true to Wonder Woman and her ideals. And I read that first issue and I was like, oh, that was really good. I was like, I'll read one more. And then next thing you know, like my thing with like, I'm not going to keep reading Ursula Guin because I need to go to sleep. I read 7 issues. I read the whole, everything that was out so far. And I will tell you, like, I know a lot of people out there, maybe they don't care about Wonder Woman. They don't think that they could probably read a whole, ongoing Wonder Woman series. But man, this is something I think everybody should read. It is, it very much, ties into the kind of things we're talking about today with like things that are like the basis of fantasy and the things that are like, influential. Like, I think this book is going to be a very influential book for years to come. Obviously with comics, people bounce off the title, things change, books get canceled, but like I was absolutely gobsmacked. Like I didn't wake up Sally, but I was like, first thing in the morning, I'm going to tell her, I'm going to hand you the iPad while I'm reading, while I'm doing something else. You need to read this.
She has a very large sword.
Oh my God. It gets bigger too. It is. Yeah. But like everything makes sense. Like everything that they're doing in there, like there is such reasoning behind it. And like the finish of the first story arc is amazing. Just do it. I don't know if it's out in trade yet because I just been reading it on the app, but like if it's in trade, buy the trade, and if issue 6 and issue 7 are in there, just buy them separately. This is worth spending your money on. It's something that like you'll sit down, you put down, and what I did was I read it, and then I was suddenly very much awake, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to read anything better tonight. I'm just going to put this down, and I'm going to just sit here with my eyes open because I don't want to come down from this just yet. So yeah, do that. Absolutely. I'm going to read all these books and catch up, and you read Absolute Wonder Woman and you'll appreciate it, and and turn your kids on to some conflict-free magic with Ursula K. Le Guin, because I already know it's going to be my favorite book. That first chapter. Whew. So, Stu, do you have any final thoughts?
I can't wait for you to read more of that, because that's my final thought. Really, is like, because I know what happens in that book, and I know how different it is from like everything else, and I just can't wait to hear your reaction to it.
Yeah, I'm there. So I probably next week. I'll probably like by the end of next week be like, okay, so this is the end of the first book. But yeah, this was another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. And I just want to say, since we're on the subject of, conflict-free magic, look out for your trans homies. Now more than ever, your homies need you. So just be kind. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at vintagerpg.com, but pursuant to what you just brought up, I'd like to just throw out a little hype for Transfigure Print Company, which makes awesome t-shirts and other printed material. They donate 10% of select sales to trans and queer related charities, and they also have like this really great list of everybody that they've donated to, like a mutual aid list, which they're really small organizations that are local. So like if you want to like be able to like find like something local near you, or something local in a place that like New Jersey has a lot of support for trans folks and queer folks. So like if you want to like, I don't know, send money to a trans related charity in Memphis, Tennessee for reasons, there's a couple in that list, and you could sort of target your donations. I like them. The Protect Queer Folks t-shirt that I have from them is like one of my favorite t-shirts. Like it's a comfortable t-shirt. The silk screening is absolutely great, and it also it's queer owned business, and they do stuff for a good cause. So all that said, and I'm also on vintagerpg.com, but Transfigure Print Company, check them out.
Hell yeah. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I am actually posting a bunch because I am promoting my latest crowdfunding campaign on BackerKit for Days of Future Fairhaven, a third-party publication adventure for Weird Heroes of Public Access. This is going to be so much fun, everybody. There's a ton of locations in there, in and around Fairhaven, a ton of cool NPCs. The story is a fight against AI that does take place earlier than the fight that we're currently in against AI. So you get in on the ground floor, whooping AI's ass, bringing your shows back from the brink of cancellation, stopping a 24-hour news cycle, saving the town, and most of all, remembering that the power of friendship can get you through almost anything. So links will be in my bios, links will be in the stories, links will be in the notes for the show. Days of Future Fairhaven, live on BackerKit starting July 1st. If you're in the Brooklyn area and you want to say hi, friend of the show, editor of the show, all around talented and handsome mofo, our Alex Murray, you may have heard us talk about him on the episode for the 20-Sided Tavern. Well, a bunch of the cast of the 20-Sided Tavern are doing Tales from the Tavern, a hilarious one-shot adventure featuring cast members from the 20-Sided Tavern with Game Master William Champion. And the cool thing is, when this episode drops, it's happening just about a week later. If you are in Brooklyn, check out the Crown Hill Theater on July 9th. I'll actually be there vending. I heard a little rumor that Tony Plus One's going to be there vending too, and you're going to be in store for an amazing, wild and weird show with our good pal, our Alex Murray, and some of his good pals, rocking and rolling dice. July 9th, 2025, Brooklyn, New York, Crown Hill Theater. Google it. There'll also be links. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerepg. You get a behind-the-scenes look at the stuff we're working on. You get early release episodes for as little as $1 a month. We've got a killer Discord community that truly is an oasis on the rest of the world. We'd love for you to be a part of. $5 tier gets you in a game with me once a month. I run things. Generally, I try to run things that we talk about on the show. At the $10 tier, you get in my game and Stu's legendary, deadly West Marches campaign, which has been going on for 2 years now. No signs of stopping. Patreon.com/vintagerepg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Take care. Thanks for listening. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Schaefer Brown. Edited by R. Alex Murray. Check us out at vintagerepg.com.